Just to introduce myself first of all, my name's Tony Cox. I'm associated with Stobbie for I, but also active in the Scottish Unemployed Workers Network. And this is the latest in a number of meetings that we've actually organised in the Stobbie. We basically had our first meeting in early June of this year, and in the intervening period we've been involved in all kinds of activity, particularly since September the 18th. The British establishment thought that the situation was over, bar the shouting. The result that we got on September the 18th, we've disabused them of that notion. Now, one of the things that I remember is that the last time we actually had a meeting, a public meeting in the Stobbie, was September the 2nd. And September the 2nd, in the run-up to the referendum, it seems like an age ago now, was actually the deadline for the registration of new voters. Now, I've made this point several times before in meetings, so my apologies if you've heard it before. But that period around then was actually when the independence campaign became very, very, very real. It moved out from the TV studios, and it moved out from under the control of the mainstream parties, including the Yes campaign and the SNP, and it moved out from the schemes and into the city centre of Dundee. And during a period of under a week, Stobbie for I, along with Scottish Unemployed Workers Network and Dundee Against Welfare Sanctions, we registered over 1,000 people. And I've made the point as well that these people were not registering to vote no. Alex Salmon made the point that he was absolutely dumbstruck by the queues of Dundonians at the registration office in the city square when he actually visited Dundee and actually visited our registration stall outside the Brew at that particular time. Now that was really when this campaign became real. And it was really from that point onwards that the social question and the class question became absolutely and utterly paramount. It stopped being about this whole issue of don't scare the horses and nothing will really change under independence. We'll keep the Queen, we'll keep the currency, and there won't be anything, you'll not notice the difference, to being a fundamental issue about what kind of country that we want to live in. Now, since that period, since the explosion of interest that we saw during the run-up to the deadline for registration on September the 2nd, and since the independence referendum itself, there has been no let-up in the extent and scale of activity in this city. Now, a couple of weeks ago, or actually about a week ago, I was actually in a meeting, and somebody was making the point, it's terrible that Dundee's not actually had a rally. Most other cities have had major rallies. And I made the point, we've maybe not had a rally, but what we've been doing is quietly and effectively attempting to build a movement. And since September the 18th, what we have seen is the creation of the Yes We Care movement, which is attempting to try and respond to the very real food poverty crisis that's actually afflicting unacceptable numbers of Dundonians. 6% of Dundonians, is estimated, are actually suffering from malnutrition. And a lot of that is actually directly linked to the sanctions regime that we see emanating from the factories of fear that we call the job centres. We're outside that job centre on a regular basis, and we can see the impact that it's actually having in human terms. People are almost broken because of the intimidation and the sense of worth that's actually been shovelled out of them as a result of having to go through that sanctions regime. And we are determined to actually, get the sanctions down in Dundee and move towards a proper way of treating people who are unemployed in this city. So there's not just been a rolling out or a development of food collections, and we've had a number of those in Dundee in the last couple of weeks. And Stobbie for I, and the Scottish Unemployed Workers Network, and DAWS have been absolutely involved alongside the people that are organising them, and the Yes Bus team and others. And also, Ritzy alongside me here, from the group taught by Mohammed, they're also involved in actually food collections and actually giving food to the most vulnerable within Dundee, irrespective of ethnicity or religion. So what we're attempting to try and do is actually develop a broad-based movement in Dundee On top of that, what we've also seen is the establishment of a food co-op in Dundee, and the stepping up of the welfare rights work that we're actually doing within the Scottish Unemployed Workers Network, and also within Dundee Against Welfare Sanctions. But what we should never ever forget is these are responses to the deep-seated and immediate crisis that we actually see within this city, afflicted by mass unemployment, deindustrialisation, zero-hour contracts, and cheap minimum wages. But it is not just a question of acting in the here and now to actually attempt to try and right the fundamental crisis actually affecting the most vulnerable within Dundee. We've got to move towards the political plane as well. We've got to fight on a whole number of fronts. So we're working on the welfare and social front, but we've also got to attempt to try and connect those campaigns up with a wider political campaign for fundamental political change. Because make no mistake, however much we attempt to try and develop organisations and groups that can respond to the immediate crisis that we're faced with, this will not plug the gaps. It'll be like putting an elastoplast over a gaping wound. Because when I'm not actually being, an activist and bawling my head off in the street and all the rest, I'm also a historian. And I'm a historian in 19th century Dundee. And one of the things about 19th century Dundee, particularly in the late 19th century, when it was known as Duopolis, was that it had some of the worst social conditions anywhere in Western Europe, and an infant mortality rate that was on a par with that in Calcutta in India. But it also had some of the largest number and percentage of charities working anywhere in the country. And those charities did nothing in order to actually cover up the real gaping social crisis that Duopolis was afflicted with at that time. Because make no mistake, the more charities that you have in a country, the greater problems with poverty you have in the country. And it should be our aim to get rid of the charities altogether, to get rid of the food banks altogether. Because what we should be attempting to try and do is actually have a society and a government that actually looks after all of its citizens, irrespective of their money or irrespective of their vested interests. And we've organised this meeting tonight, Stobbie for Aye. And we've invited activists from outside of the Stobbie area to come and actually stand alongside us, because we know that the Stobbie, as a result of the independent vote and it going against us the other week there, we know that Stobbie is actually going to come under fundamental attack. And we know that we cannot resist those attacks on our own. We have to make common cause with communities and groups right across this city and beyond. So what we are putting forward is a strategy in order to resist the cuts that are coming. They're in the post. And as a result of that, what we are doing, and we're using this meeting tonight in order to launch the call for a national demonstration in Dundee on December the 6th, which happens 3 days after the autumn budget statement is actually rolled out. And on December the 3rd, we will know the exact extent of the damage that is going to be inflicted on Scottish society as a result of the condemned government's plans for this country in the wake of the independence referendum. It also happens around about 6 or 7 days after the Smith Commission inquiry actually publishes their findings. So we'll know exactly what we're being offered in terms of extra powers. And let's be under no illusions here. We're calling for a national demonstration. We're going to fill the high street in Dundee. We're calling for a national demonstration against austerity, but also for increased powers for the Scottish Parliament, particularly on the issue of welfare. Now we know that extra powers themselves, without the funding that actually comes with it, is absolutely and utterly futile. But we're also aware that we've got to do everything we can in our power in order to protect our communities. So, we go for extra powers, but we also keep our powder dry on the issue of independence. Now, I'll absolutely make this point before I actually hand over to the first speaker. I came into this campaign as an international socialist, and I stand here as an international socialist today. But during the course of the independence referendum campaign, I became an advocate of independence, and I am an advocate of independence now. I believe that the only way for Scotland to actually step out from under the Westminster shadow is to actually go for independence. And that remains our goal. But we will fight tooth and nail for every single reform that will increase the chances of our people not actually being steamrollered by the Westminster elites. Now, to that end, we need to make a common cause across a broad front. We're calling for a bloc, a broad left organising committee. We called for it at the Big Red Yes meeting some weeks back, at the same time as we called for the coming together of a national demonstration on austerity. And we repeat that call. We will work with anyone in order to actually protect the citizens in Dundee and citizens right across Scotland from the attacks that are surely in the post. But we also know that we need those extra powers. So we'll be making common cause right across the parties. In Stobbie for I mean, myself, I'm not actually a member of any political party. I'm a socialist of long standing. I don't intend joining any political party either. I will work. That goes for Stobbie for by the way. We will work with anybody, irrespective of party, apart from the obvious, exceptions. That is the blue Tories, the pinko Tories, that's the Liberals, and the red Tories, the Labour Party. We won't work with any of these people. They're traitors to the Scottish people, but fundamentally, and particularly with regards to the Labour Party, they are traitors to their class. And what Stobbie for stands on is a class position. We believe that freedom for Scotland is absolutely and utterly inextricably linked with lifting the position of working class people within this country. Now, I'm going to begin the meeting tonight. I've put forward this idea of a broad bloc alliance and the calling of a demonstration. We've been in negotiations with the council and with other political parties right across the political spectrum within the independence movement. The SNP in Dundee are fully in support of this demonstration. We expect them to be fully involved with the organisation and the actual rally and demonstration on the day. Now, our plans are to have a march on December the 6th to start at the Hilltown, march down the Hilltown, through Euclid Crescent or Albert Square, down Commercial Street, turning into the High Street, and then we have our rally in our Freedom Square, the area right in front of the High Street, where in front of our Boots. And we'll have a flat top lorry right across the mouth of Reform Street, and that's where we'll be making our call to actually make a stand on the issue of austerity. And we fully expect that demonstration. This is the early days of the organisation. We've had a lot of negotiations over the last couple of weeks with the council and, as I said, with other groups. But we're confident that we've got the support of the SNP. They've told us, senior figures within the SNP, because their membership now, I think it's up to about 2,500, and they're looking around for things for all these new members to do. And we said, well, we've got this rally and march plan. Surely you should come on that. And what we're calling on the SNP to do is to actually stand full square against any attempt by the condemned coalition to pass the cuts on to the local authority in Dundee and local authorities right across Scotland. But we're also aware that in the immediate term, those within our communities who are the most vulnerable need immediate help. And for that reason, we are actually working alongside the Yes Bus team, the Food Co-op, and also Ritzy's group, taught by Mohammed. And on Saturday, we'll be standing shoulder to shoulder with Ritzy, the Yes Bus team as well, in the latest food collection, which will be getting organised in the Murraygate. We'll be out with a megaphone, and we'll also be attempting to try and drum up a bit of support in order to get the food in. We think the Yes Bus team are doing a marvellous job, and it's a real privilege to actually be involved in that work. But as I say, we've always got our eye on the fundamental political question, because we know that the fundamental problem of poverty, food poverty, is not going to be solved by charity alone. It needs to be a political solution. Government needs to move in. And from that perspective, I want now to hand over to my good friend and comrade, Ritzy, who's actually going to tell us a wee bit about the work that Taught by Mohammed are doing, and the work that they're actually doing alongside the Yes Bus team and the other progressive groups within Dundee. So a round of applause for Ritzy, please.